Is it time to start having the conversation again about a Destiny 3? Seems like whenever we enter this domain of the game is dying, we begin this conversation. But yeah, it's a pretty dark time right now as far as numbers go. Overall, from some recent data from Cbro, there are 59,000 overall concurrent players. That is about 24,000 on PlayStation, 20,000 or so on Xbox, 11,000 on Steam, and a whopping 870 on Epic Games. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know what the solution to this situation is. I'm not a game dev, I don't work in the industry at all. I can only look from the outside in and tell, you as a viewer and maybe some devs what would excite me as far as playing the game goes. I'm still excited for the new expansions. Cautiously optimistic is probably the best way to say how I feel about it. And excited is more so, I'm excited to see something different, which is supposedly what these expansions are supposed to bring. But we really haven't seen much of anything else, and since, it's going to be months until this stuff comes out, it wouldn't really surprise me if we don't see anything for a couple of months anyways, especially since Heresy still hasn't had anything released about that either. So in terms of hype, there is just little to nothing. Now, I have highlighted in the past how I still think a Destiny 2 show would do a lot to boost these numbers, but that's something that would take such a long time to make that at this point it's pointless. I mean, if something like that was in the works maybe before Final Shape and it came out, sometime in the new year, that could help. But at this point, if you started making a show now, you'd have to cast, you'd have to write the story, and you'd probably see it in 2026, right? So that is a solution that wouldn't work here. Now, I bring up Destiny 3 because I actually do think that is the best long-term solution. Because you can keep releasing content with Destiny 2, but at some point, the technological impairments of an older game are going to catch up with you. And that's what happened with Destiny 1, is that there were certain technological impairments that you had to impose on the game to cater to the older platforms, and at some point you just have to move on, right? I mean, right now in the game we're seeing so many bugs that the game can barely function, and the devs have to overwork themselves to fix these issues, or at least that's what it feels like. I could be wrong, but if, again, from the outside looking in, there seems to be a bug with every release, and then a bug with the patches, and then sometimes the patches don't fix the bugs, or they just, fix the wrong thing. It's a mess. So I think that at some point you have to cave in if you're Bungie, if you're Sony, and you're looking to make money. Destiny 3 would make the most sense. Now again, I talk about it as a long-term solution because it will, at the very least, get players excited for the future. And you might ask the question, well, what will we do for content? Now, I'm still a fan of the potential of having just, Into the Light-esque releases up until a Destiny 3 came out. I mean, that would honestly be great. You look at some of the D1 content we got before the release of Destiny 2, and that was really some of the best Destiny content we ever got, with the Age of Triumphs, refurbishing basically every single raid that was in the game at the time, and it was a really fun time to play Destiny. So if they did something like that with Destiny 2, that'd be great. Now listen, I hear people when they talk about, well, what about completely having to get every single piece of loot known to exist once again. And yes, it will be painful to lose everything that we have, but that's the whole point of playing games like this, is to have a reason to go out and chase this loot. Now, Bungie doesn't have to make it so we start from ground zero, but I mean, that would make the most sense, right? To go from 0 to whatever the power cap is. But let's say maybe they let you bring your weapons from Destiny 2. It's just that you have to, level up before you can use them or something along those lines. Or I think probably the best way to go about this is to just torch and burn everything. Leave it in the past. And that's something that Bungie's had a really hard time with a lot of this old content, because I mean, we're still getting D1 reworked weapons in Destiny 2, which is fine. I enjoy it, but at some point you have to move on to new ideas to keep players excited. Now, I'm not saying that they have to stay with those ideas and just keep, because generating new content in a game that's built around refurbishing certain things, it's not going to work out. So eventually, yeah, you're going to see old stuff come back, and you're going to have to live with it, and you're going to say the same thing, like, oh, it's refurbished content, and I have to pay to play old content. You're playing Destiny 2 in the year 2024. You have to be okay with some level of refurbished content. And who's to say that Bungie won't completely change the way loot works in Destiny 3? They could change everything. And that's the excitement about having a new IP completely, is that everything can change. I mean, everything will probably be the same, but it might feel different, it might look different, the mechanics of the game might be a little different, and that is, at the end of the day, what people want, is new. And I don't think Destiny 2 can offer that right now. And like I said, I could be wrong. We're kind of in a weird phase right now, where think of, Final Shape as endgame. This is the start of, the new MCU phase. And yeah, Ant-Man, that first movie didn't do so hot. We're kind of waiting for the Deadpool and Wolverine to resurrect the Destiny universe, so to speak. And it might be a while for that. I will say that the narrative team kind of does have to carry the story, but even if they were, there are just so many foundational issues with the game right now that it's really hard to carry it through a seasonal story, right? I mean, just from a personal experience, and I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here, so I apologize. I was playing Trials last weekend. I don't play that much Trials. I'm not good, I'm not bad, I'm like in the middle, I'm okay. And every single match, it felt like, anyways, I mean, I went like above 500. I was like 13-9 or something like that in that session. But all those losses, it felt like I had someone who was leaving on the enemy team or on my team, or I had someone who was throwing. Listen, I get it. Trials is frustrating. Maybe you think you're playing with a couple of bad players and you don't want to play the full game, you just want to get it over quickly. But the playlist being like that does not encourage new players. And I was playing solo queue, so that's where a new player is probably going to go if they're into Trials, or into at least trying it. So that was a horrible experience for me. And sure, you can say I'm a bad player and I deserved it, but I really don't think that was the case. In fact, most of the players that were throwing, yeah, their Trials report didn't look so pretty, and I think I can understand why they were throwing, because they were, in fact, the reason that we were losing. But the point here is that usually you don't see that type of behavior when the player base is high, because, people are actually trying to have fun and win, whereas most people playing right now just want to get their loot and be done. And it's, again, back to the Destiny 2's a chore checklist. You come, you do your seasonal challenges, you get your flawless, and you log off. And that's a huge reason as to why we are where we are with Destiny as a game. So while I admit that Destiny 3 won't fix all of Destiny's issues, it can at least start to address the biggest issue, which is there are not enough people playing this game or interested in this game. And once you lose that, nothing else matters as much. Because if you don't have people playing, you're not making money. If you're not making money, you can't pay for anything new. And I know I just said I want Destiny 3, but you also have many expansions that they're going to have to release to get this to work. And listen, Apollo and Behemoth have a lot riding on them already, and we've heard nothing about them except for, the base concepts of what those expansions will hold. And that's a lot of pressure to put on expansions that are going to be like nothing we've ever seen, because, they're not big expansions. They're not like season size like we used to get with Warmind. They are in the middle, at least supposedly. So we don't know what to expect, and it's scary. So I'm hoping that maybe we'll see these types of expansions over the next couple of years. Maybe we see a Destiny 3 in like 2027. But it's just not looking good. There's so much competition, there's so much innovation in the gaming industry right now that Bungie needs to do the same thing. Otherwise, you're going to be left in the dust, and clearly that's what's happening right now. Anyways, that's it for now. See you in the next one.